Welcome to What's the Effie?
What the Effie?
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome up to another episode of What the Effie. And I'm very, very happy to say that I have Chris Steele with us today. Chris, thank you very, very much for coming on. I am tickled pink to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's
been a long, I know we've been talking about it for a long time.
That we have. I think we met at the mastermind the first time, right?
Yeah, I think that was
our first in-person meeting.
2021.
That's right, right at the very end.
Or 2020. Yep. Yeah, the end. Yep. Yeah.
So I thank you for that. And yeah, we have been talking about it a little bit too long. Hi, Pansy. How are you? Nice to see you. Anyhow, so I want to jump in. I usually will begin by asking a little bit about where you started, because everybody starts somewhere. And I am really, really surprised to see how different people's beginnings are. So talk to me a little bit about your beginning. What was your family situation like? Or, where were you born? I'm assuming you were born here.
Yeah. So, and when you say the beginning, you mean like the beginning, not like the beginning of my real estate.
No, the beginning career, of your life, in that it's nice to get an idea about the background of the person, just a little bit.
Yeah. Got it. Well, if we go all the way to the beginning, first I was conceived. Then I spent the first 9 months living as a tenant, occupying a single womb household for a period of 9 months.
Oh, wow. You were a squatter.
Yeah. And then I was evicted 9 months later.
I love it. And that was what, 20 years ago?
Yes. 23 years ago. Got to make sure I'm still legal. No, so actually I was born September 20th, 1982. So that makes me 42 years old at this point.
Well, you don't look.
So, thank you. It's a lot of jujitsu and just working out, and yeah.
Nice.
Keeps you young.
Where was the eviction? Where did it take place? Where were you born?
Yeah, so I was born, technically I was born just outside of Philly at Abington Hospital. So it's right outside of Philly, but I spent, lived in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania most of my life. So grew up there, and probably till I was about shortly after high school. And then I moved all up and down the East Coast. It was right after high school. I went to Penn State for about a semester and a half, and figured out really quickly that college was not the route for me.
So I didn't realize that we had actually shared areas. Like, I was in Philly for 7 years.
Oh, really? When was that?
When was it? Oh, about the time you were being born.
Wow. Okay.
Pretty much. My lived on the main line, and my kids went to Episcopal.
All right.
Yeah. And I also lived in Ardmore and had a property, King of Prussia. So that area is very beautiful.
Yeah. That explains a lot more about you, Effie. More than most people that are watching this would know.
Uh-oh. Oh my God. Well, I am going to share a couple pictures just because I like to show folks what you look like when you started out. Now, where was this then?
That was at the Jersey Shore.
Nice.
Well, it could have been, you know what? I'm not 100% sure. It was either at the Jersey Shore or it would have been down in Florida.
Oh, okay. All right. That's interesting. And you were what? Were you under one?
Probably somewhere. Judging based off of how I look and how my daughter currently looks, I would say probably right around 1.
Nice. And these two are so cute. You look a little bit older there, but so cute. Look at you. Look at you there. I want to squeeze those cheeks. But I think that out of the pictures you sent me of when you were little, that one takes the cake.
That one's hilarious.
Totally. What were you doing
Apparently, I thought the hairdryer was a gun and I was shooting my father.
with warm air?
Yeah.
Now, was he asleep at the time?
I think he was just playing into the he just got shot moment.
Oh, you got him. You got him. Oh, that's hysterical. I love it. I just love that. And we're going to just, I guess, jump forward. Well, no, I think we'll come back at a little bit of later time. But tell me now, you grew up in Philly and you went to, oh, we've got Mr. Spoon himself. All right. Looks like your youngest son. Have you seen his son? Have you got anything?
Oh yeah. No, definitely have nothing to do with that.
Okay. Okay. So you went to, was it Penn State, you said?
Yeah, went to Penn State Abington for about a semester and a half.
And didn't like it?
No, college was not for me. School generally was not for me. It was I just didn't feel like challenged in the public school system, you know.
So were you like a troublemaker, or were you just tuned out?
No, I was just kind of tuned out. Like I could, when I did my schoolwork, I performed really well and got, decent scores on stuff. The challenge was when I actually performed my schoolwork. So, and then went to Penn State for a semester and a half, and then fast forward to 2024, and I actually just recently completed my bachelor's degree.
Wow.
So yeah, which is pretty funny. My wife loves it because I basically never really studied anything at all. I was doing is Western Governors University, which is like a competency curriculum, and
Okay.
so you would have like a pre-test. So you'd start a class, you do a pre-test that would tell you where you rank on the competency level, and if you're over a certain amount, then you could choose to just test out. And so I probably tested out of about 75% of the classes over the 4 years. So never had to study anything. Just, a lot of it was just basic common sense stuff. But really, I think what helped me the most was just, it's kind of from SATs, right? Like where, when you go through the SAT practice stuff, they tell you it's less about the content and more the phrasing of the question. And that always stuck with me. And so I think it just helped me to be able to like really break apart the questions and figure out, okay, where are they trying to trip you up in this question? Which was really helpful. But yeah, my wife loved it because she had to study for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours for every class she ever took.
Did she have her bachelor's too?
She actually has her master's.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah,
Good.
she's a smarty pants.
So what does she have it in, and what did you get your bachelor's in?
Got my bachelor's in business management, and she has her master's in education. So she's she's a special education teacher. Or was a special education teacher. She just left to stay home with the baby so she could be a mama full time.
Well, I don't blame her. And let's talk about that for just a second, because we share something else in common besides the Philadelphia connection. You had your daughter at about the same time as I got my granddaughter. So this is, look how happy you look, and same with your wife. Victoria looks gorgeous. You all look so happy. I love that picture. I love
that.
it.
We are.
How old was Coda?
That was 4th of July, her first year. So let's see, 8 months. Yeah,
Nice.
8 months.
Very nice. Oh, does
What's
she
up,
know
Dustin?
does she know the word flag now?
She might say it a little bit of a different way. If you get my drift, which might not be taken so pleasantly by certain populations.
Oh, that's so funny. That's so funny. Yeah, because Sammy says stars, stripes, flag. I'm like, okay, you got it. It's kind of funny. But yeah. Oh, great. Dustin's on here. Hi, Dustin. Oh, don't go easy on him. Well, wait a minute, Dustin. I'm going to have you on one time. Are you sure you want me to give me that kind of advice?
Yeah, right.
That's funny.
Dustin's awesome.
Oh my gosh. So kind of bring us together a little bit on you grew up, you ended up not going to school. What did you do? How'd you make money?
Yeah, so I so my first job, basically, my very first job was, well, my first legitimate job was at a Boy Scout camp. Um,
Wow.
and that was, I forget exactly how old I was, maybe 15, 16 years old, whatever the first time you're legally able to get a paycheck is, that's when it was. And then shortly after that, like, after graduating high school, I worked at a bunch of McDonald's. But the funny thing is, so fast forward to today, I have like over 25 years of sales experience, and people always ask me what my first sales job was. And it was, I worked for this company called DS Max, where they would basically license all these different like products, Samsonite, Vivitar, Warner Brothers, Disney, all these things. And you would load up your vehicle with all these items, and you'd go into these like little sections of Philly where there's like a lot of businesses, and you'd go business to business, and you'd be pitching these products that, they might be 30 in the stores, you got it for $5, or $50 in the stores, you got it for $10, right? And you're pitching all this stuff. And I moved all up and down the East Coast doing that. But the funnier story is, technically my first sales job was at high school. I went to high school in North Philadelphia, which is the hood. I had to take the subway to get to my high school, and then I would get off the subway and I would walk probably 6 blocks through the hood to get to my high school, which was right behind Temple. And there was these little bodegas, right? These little corner bodegas where they would sell all this, like these knockoff sodas, right? Like just like the non-name brand stuff. And my school store would sell Coke and Pepsi for $1 a can. So being the little entrepreneur that I was, I would buy 25-cent cans of sodas, like $40 worth. And I'd come in with just like all these bags of sodas. I'd throw them in my locker, and then I would literally stand outside the school store, and I would hustle soda cans for 50 cents a pop and undercut the school store by 50%. And until one day I strolled in with like $40, $50 worth of cans of soda, and the vice principal and the disciplinarian were there, confiscated all my merch. And I went on this big tirade about this is America, this is,
I see what you mean by your whether they're legitimate jobs or not. That's hysterical. That is hysterical. You're putting the school store out of business. No wonder they came after you.
Yeah. Right?
Oh, that is funny. That's funny.
So that was actually, interestingly enough, that's my first sales job, and technically is my first wholesaling job.
Oh, that's the
first time I thought about that, actually.
That's a good point. Yeah, because you were just taking them and flipping. That's funny. Very funny. So what would you say is your first real job? I mean, obviously McDonald's and these jobs that you were doing that were very creative on your own really helped to shape us, but what do you think was your first in the box job, that was probably sales or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, after the few years at like every McDonald's in Montgomery County that you could imagine, and Wendy's and all that stuff, when I got that job at DS Max doing the business to business sales, that business model, it was structured as like, okay, you start out doing the sales, and then they work you towards being like an assistant manager, and then once you get to a certain level, they would help you open an office, and they would help support you. And I never got to that point because I ended up leaving before that. But what I did do is I moved all up and down the East Coast, helping to train other offices, salespeople.
Oh, that's great.
And get them up and running. And then
when you say you moved up and down, did they keep you there for any time, or is it just like
usually like 9 months at a time? Yeah.
Okay.
So
I
mean, I was.
Cities.
Oh yeah, I mean, I was as far north as Gorham, Maine, all the way down to Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach was the funnest because I spent like 9 months living in a hotel right on the beach, and went all over there. I was in Worcester, Mass, Springfield. Yeah, exactly. Called it work. it was just a blast, and I was young, single, and just, having the time of my life. And it was, you know, no better, no easier opportunity to approach a girl when you're single, when you have like a little cool little Disney character to sell or something like that. It was like the best opening pickup line.
For sure.
Um,
I think it was,
so
didn't Abraham meet Donna with Beanie Babies?
I think so.
Except it was the other way around. I think she was the one that was taking advantage of him. But that's funny. Yeah, yeah, they'll do the trick all right.
Oh yeah.
So if you were having fun, why'd you quit or what happened?
Well, there just wasn't. I mean, there was a lot of things. There was some issues with the management. The whole group of people that was involved in that business was kind of, just a little bit on the fringe, and
Oh,
not exactly straight laced. So there's a lot of things going on that just weren't
you
really.
should have fit right in. Having given that you were trying to undercut the school store.
Hey, it's free market economy, right? It's all about supply and demand. I was
Right,
I was
right
bringing a
on that
product.
line. Right on that line. And then you go to the next high school and you say, I'm a student here. Yeah, okay. I get it. I get it. That's funny. So where did you go to from there? Talk to us about the progression. How did you get to real estate? Because we want to get to that.
Yeah, for sure. So, one of I ended up, is kind of a long path because I didn't get into real estate until about 6 years ago, 2019, 5 years ago. Um, and I ended up getting a job doing car sales. I did that for 3 years, did really well at that, and then
Were they
and then
were
I
they new cars or secondhand?
new and used, yeah.
Oh,
So
okay.
we were selling Chryslers and Jeeps, actually. And then my friend got a job working for a home improvement company, and he's like, "Oh, you're never gonna believe this. All I have to do is I go door to door and I set up free estimates. That's all I do is I set up free estimates, and I'm gonna make $100,000 this year doing it." And I was like, "There's no way that that's true. That's a lie. It's a scam. Like, I don't believe you." He was like, "No, I'm dead serious." And so I'm like, "Okay, well, you work there for 30 days, show me your pay stub. And then if it's true, I'll be over there." So he was there for a month. He broke basically pretty much every record that the company had, and, showed me his check for like, $4 or $5,000 within the first 30 days. And I was like, "Okay, cool." I put in my 2 weeks notice and then went over there, and then I broke every single one of his records. And basically we took a team that was averaging about 12 appointments a week per person on average, to me and him were putting up 30 to 50 appointments a week, and we were getting paid $50 per appointment. So
Wow.
we were just cranking. and
Wow.
then and then they
Didn't
scaled
you
me
kind of, doesn't
into.
that mean that the company wouldn't have been able to perform? Or did they
No,
just
because
hire?
no, because they were in scaling mode, and so they scaled up their sales team. It was a really dialed in system. That company is blown up big time. It's called Power Home Remodeling Group. It was Power Windows and Siding, but I then went into the sales role and I was doing the sales. So I learned how to estimate repairs on homes, windows, siding, roofing, gutters, doors,
Nice.
all that stuff, right? So it
Mhm.
made it very easy for me to identify those things. So then fast forward, I move out to Southern California, and, had a couple other jobs along the way, ended up doing sales for a company similar to that out here. Then I was selling, never
Okay,
done phone sales.
hang on a second. I'm curious about two things. How did they train you since you weren't in that field to be able to estimate correctly? Was it just a bunch of formulas that you had to follow?
Yeah, just a bunch of formulas. You're really just taking measurements, and then they have a whole little sheet that you would just fill out, and it would basically tell you the numbers.
Okay.
And it was a one call close process. So you were there, and I was pitching people 30, 40, $50,000 worth of window inside. We're not talking about like the Home Depot special. We're talking about like top of the line
You
windows.
were on the main line.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So
So
um
why did you want to go out west? I mean,
I was following a girl. Yeah, that's how it always goes.
I'm sorry. Oh, it's so interesting to see what happens with people's lives, because you were making good money and you
Oh
were
yeah.
in your element,
Oh yeah.
and you decided to give it up to follow a girl out west. Wow. Was it
Yep.
Victoria?
No, it was not.
Okay. So where did you go out west and what'd you do?
San Diego. And
Oh, that's where you are now, right?
yep. Yeah. So came out to San Diego and then and I basically found a company out here that was kind of at the stage in their progression that Power Windows and Siding was at when I had first started with them. And I was like, oh, I know this blueprint, right? Like, so let's just implement it here and tear it up. And so started with them, was building out this whole team and getting that going. And then lo and behold, I found out that one of the marketing managers was basically embezzling like a crap ton of money from the owner. And so I talked to the owner about it, and rather than him like believing me and like looking into it, he just totally took her side, and like I just got cast aside. I was like, wow, that was an interesting experience.
Now you know what it means when they say, don't shoot the messenger.
Exactly.
It sounds
So
like you did get shot. Were you
yeah,
fired or were you just put aside?
yeah, it was just, I mean, it was just unraveling pretty quickly, and I was just like, yeah, this is not going to work, so I just parted ways. Um, and
Interesting,
then
isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's very interesting. Well, because she had been with him for a long, long time, so they had this like long, outstanding relationship. And I think I don't know exactly what his position was as far as like, did he feel like I was trying to like cut in on that? I don't really understand the dynamic 100%. But it was definitely very odd to me that he wouldn't at least look into it further. Um, because basically, I mean, he's putting in all this money into supporting me to build this department, and then she's like literally like cutting things off left and right. Um, so yeah, it was pretty interesting. But obviously God works everything out, in his plan, and his plan's better than mine. So
And it's very interesting how people don't necessarily think the way you do.
yeah,
And you were thinking, well, I'd want to know. I got to do right by this guy. And
yep,
in the meantime, you can't even understand what was going through his head. She must
yeah.
have been a little bit worried. She must have been very upset with you, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, very early on, like she was already trying to like put the kibosh on like the whole system that I was building, like just every turn, like just trying to just cut it down, and not really support it in any way. Even though, and I think really what it came down to was she thought that what I was going to do was replace what she was doing,
Oh,
when in reality what I was building was going to further support and prop her up further and provide a better opportunity for her and her team doing what they're doing. Um,
but again,
so
you were expecting that she'd think like you did.
yeah,
And she came from a different place, which
yep,
was I have the system set up. I've got my little funnel coming in. Who the frick are you?
exactly,
I can
exactly,
understand hers because it makes sense,
yeah,
but I don't understand his. But it is interesting how we take action based on the ethics and the point of view that we have. And we think
hmm,
that this is how people would see it, but not always the case at all.
yeah,
So, where'd you go to after that? What'd you do?
yeah. So after that, man, that was shortly after I moved here. I bounced around to a couple different
And what
places.
happened
I
with the
mean,
girl?
oh, that unraveled before I even got out here. Yeah, I had already had everything planned for the move, and it unraveled before I got out here. And I was like, well, I wanted to get away from, like all of my friends back home. Basically, my former life was a lot of drug use, and
Oh, okay.
so basically all of my friends were through that. Like, there's not a single friend that I could even think of from back then that I met outside of drug use. And so, I was just really trying to, make a change and get away from that. So I was like, well, you know what? No better time to make that change than right now when I already have everything planned.
Good.
And so made the move and then never looked back, ended up getting saved out here. And then yeah, it's been a blessing, ups and downs along the way. But fast forward, I mean, I didn't have the one portion of sales that I didn't really have much experience with was phone sales. And I
Really?
ended up getting I never really had many phone sales jobs. And so finally I ended up getting a job at this bamboo flooring company. Worked for them for like 3 to 4 years, got a ton of phone sales experience where I was selling homeowners over the phone in the southeast of the country. And
Was it incoming or outbound?
it was inbound. Yeah, they were all inbound leads. They would go on the website. They had a killer PPC and SEO program going on there, because at the time they still are, I think, the number one bamboo flooring manufacturer in the country.
Wow.
And their biggest claim to fame was the world's hardest floor. Because they came up with a proprietary method to make it more dense and harder. And so yeah, we were selling the hardest floor, and so they had a great killer PPC campaign, had a ton of leads, and but yeah, it just gave me a ton of opportunity to have just phone sales experience. And then
Good.
fast forward from that is when I got a job at Fortune Builders, which
All
uh,
right.
are you familiar with Fortune Builders?
I am, but some of our
Okay.
audience might not be. Do you want to spend a second just telling them a little bit about it?
Yeah, so Fortune Builders was the largest real estate investing education company in the country for a very long time. Than Merrill, Paul Sagan, his brother, those guys started years and years and years ago. I want to say it was like probably 15 years ago is when they started. They were on Flip This House and really blew up. And, they started doing basically coaching and, like all the things, all the things except like Pace is very focused on creative finance, right?
Mhm.
Which is, one giant niche of real estate. They were focused on a lot more of the ins and outs of basically like wholesaling and fixing and flipping, building business. Like Pace has PCS, they had NCH, so a lot of that business model that
Mm.
exists with Sub2 and that whole community and how that process, went, a lot of it kind of came from, the Fortune Builders model. And so
Interesting.
my
So did
business
they
partner
do
worked
this?
for them for a decade.
Okay, so hold on. Let's just get a clear understanding of that because I've known them as mentoring
Hmm.
in education, but they didn't do the flat fee like Pace does with Sub Two. Once you're in, you're in.
Yeah.
They do a yearly thing, right?
Yeah, so their whole thing was live events. And I promise I'll
Ring a
come
few
back to this.
bells.
This will make a whole lot of sense once you hear the whole trajectory. But basically, they had this whole model of live events, right? So they would post these ads, and it's like, oh, free 2-hour event in your area, right? So they come out, there'd be a 2-hour event. And then when you're at this 2-hour event, they'd give you just enough to get you like where you could possibly go and do something in real estate with that little 2-hour bit of information. But they're like, and if you really want to learn more, if this excites you, then you can pay $197. You can come to our 3-day event, not free, $197 for this 3-day event, and you could bring a friend for free. Right. So then 2 weeks later, they would have a 3-day event where they'd have anywhere from 500 to 2,000 people. And they ran 8 to 12 of these every single weekend all over the country. Right.
Wow.
Where there'd be 500 to 2,000 people at these events. Then at the 3-day workshop, all this stuff, all the stuff about real estate and how you can get super wealthy, all that jazz. And then at the end of that, they're literally back there in the back of the room closing you for either a 29,997, 35,997, or 49,997. So
Wow.
$30,000 to $50,000 for you to sign up to join this curriculum that basically teaches you everything you need to know. And so I started working for them, and I was on the student onboarding team, where basically when somebody signs up at that event, so if you went to that event and they signed you up and they're like, Effie, you're going to be a real estate investor. Cool. Here's my $50,000. And you're like, I don't have $50,000 in my bank account. Cool. No problem. You can take it against your IRA. You can do a 401k loan, credit cards. You can take a HELOC. You can do all this stuff, right? They tell you to do it. So you sign up, you pay as much as you could that day. And then I was on the student onboarding team. So the next day, Monday, you get a call from Chris Deal. And the whole premise is, I'm linking you up with your coaches, showing you around the curriculum, all that jazz. For the first 2 weeks, I'm your point of contact. Ultimately, my goal was collect the remaining tuition that you owe.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Right. A little bit high pressure, especially if they bought in on the lower end. Wow.
Yeah.
Within 2 weeks, you were actually expected to be able to get that money?
Most people were expected to pay in full at the event. Like the whole premise is like, you got to pay in full at the event. And they would make exceptions for people if they couldn't come up with it. And then I would basically coach you on, how to do a loan against your house, how to, pull out your 401k, like all these different things. Right.
Right.
And the reality is, right, like, I could see both sides of the coin, right? People are like, oh, well, you're pressuring people to take, all this money to like sign up. It's like, oh, that could be, like, is that taking advantage of people, right? And when you hear the statistics of like 95% of people that get involved in real estate investing, most of them don't ever invest in a single property, let alone be successful.
Oh,
right.
Well, could you please repeat that for those of us that are hard of hearing?
Yeah, like 95% of people that sign up for any real estate investing education don't do a deal. Not one deal. So,
and then the average real estate investor only does 1 to 3 a year.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's a very small group of people that are going to really be successful. Now, on the flip side, who am I to deny that small percentage of people? And how do I know who that small percentage of people is that's coming through the door, right? Like something in them told them that they need to do this, right? And somebody sold them, right? So like there's that reality too. But I'm a huge fan and huge proponent of personal responsibility. I view it the same way with lending, and we can go down a whole nother rabbit trail of people getting taken advantage of in the lending space within real estate. At the end of the day, we're all adults. We have to be responsible for our own decisions. And, kind of like that comment in that one group that we're in, and, you're like, oh, really want to call this person out. I'm like, it's not going to do you any good. And it's only going to make you look bad and a hater. And really the best thing that we can do to protect people from getting taken advantage of is make sure that we're constantly educating them on protect yourself. It's just like the UFC, right? One of the things that the ref says in a UFC fight is protect yourself at all times, or in boxing matches, protect yourself at all times, right? We need to constantly operate protecting ourselves in this business because there's snakes in this industry. That's why we have a snake in the office to remind us that there's snakes in this industry.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting. How old were the people that were signing up for Fortune Builder? What was the average age?
I would say the average age is probably in the 40s to 50s, but I mean, we'd get people that were 20, 25 years old that, somehow, got some money from family or begged, borrowed, and steal. And then we'd have 90-year-old people signing up, with their 401ks and whatnot.
Amazing. That is amazing. And it's an interesting way of looking at it, because I think that we are ultimately responsible for everything that we do. Having said that, when you want to believe the best and you're encouraged to be go-givers, it's easier to not see it sometimes. And it can be tricky because, it can be tricky. Absolutely. But I agree with you. It's not for you or I to judge if they're, you'd be denying them. So, that's not exactly cool. But at the same time, the statistics say probably the one you're talking to right now isn't the one that's going to make it.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
But, like I said, I mean, it's, like, I don't have, I'm not omnipotent or omniscient. I don't know everything, and I can't see the future. So it's like, I could be like, oh, this person really shouldn't do this because it's their last dollar. I know a guy that went through the Fortune Builders curriculum that literally the day that he went to the event, he was living in his car.
Mhm.
Living in his car. He signed up. This guy is doing 25 to 30 deals a year, like full flips, making a ton of money.
Wow.
Like, he's killing it, right? Every indicator would say that guy is not going to succeed,
Yeah.
right? So
Interesting.
if I was, and I'm not the guy that onboarded him, but if the guy that onboarded him was like, like, oh, have a heart, like this guy can't afford this. It's like, no,
Are we really
sometimes,
going to take his car?
yeah. I mean, sometimes the best position for somebody to be in is when their back is against the
Against the
wall,
wall. Yep.
right?
Mhm.
And sometimes the most comfortable position is the worst position you could be in. Pace
Yep.
talks about it too. He's like, I make sure that there's like no cat, and this, I'm sure he's being facetious, right? He's like, I want my bank accounts to be zero because I don't want to be like resting on my laurels. I'm like, I understand the picture he's trying to cast, right? Like,
Yep.
so
Yep.
I totally get that.
Well, it does sound like, Fortune Builders had a real model that has existed and is continuing very much today.
Well, not so much, because I started with them in 2019, and we know what happened in 2020. COVID happened, which meant live events of 500 to 2,000 people sitting in a conference room at a hotel were cut. So literally, I'll never forget standing in the office, and we're like, "Holy crap! The NBA just canceled the rest of the season." Uh oh. Then all of a sudden, oh, this event is canceled. Oh, this event is canceled. What? This one's still on. This one's still on. Nope, that one's canceled. That one's canceled. Boom. All of a sudden, everybody go home. You're going to work from home now. And dominoes just kept falling. And then by March of 2020, they let go 70% of the 600 people that were working there,
Wow.
and virtually completely shut down. They switched to like a virtual model. I don't know if they're still even doing it. I know at one point they were trying to sell the company. They should have sold it, a year prior. Looking back on it, I'm sure they made money and did really well. But yeah, it was wild, that
Yeah.
experience. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me. And this is why it's like people, it all comes down to like how you view your circumstances, right? Like, you can
Exactly.
either be a victor or you could be a victim, right? And nobody gets to decide that other than you, right?
Exactly.
You're in control of how you view your circumstance. And in that circumstance, I didn't even tell you the whole story leading up to how I got that job and how I canceled every other interview. I went through 7 interviews to get the job. Finally, the guy said, I'm not going to be able to offer you the position. And I had already burned the boats. And I said, cool, no problem. What position can you offer me? And he was like, what? Nobody's ever asked me that. And then he put me in contact with another guy at the company. And that's how I ended up making my way into the student onboarding team. But I had like done everything I could to get into that seat. It was like the best job I ever had. I was like, man, this is amazing. I'm going to change my life because of it. And, so when we got laid off, I could have easily been like, oh, bother, like, there's my ticket, right? But
Especially
got
if
laid
you've
off.
ever had any kind of abuse in the past, like any kind of drug abuse, it'd be easy to fall back into it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that is a good point. But I agree with you. If you choose to see it as fate telling you that, oh, no, you're going the wrong way, not that way, another way, and you don't see it as a failure, but rather a redirect, I think that's probably much better for you.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and we got laid off, was getting more money on unemployment than I was getting paid to work there. But now I had 40 to 50 hours a week of free time.
Yeah.
And so plus we were getting the COVID benefits, right? Which was an extra $600 a week, right? So another $2,400 a month. So it's like, cha-ching, what better time to start a business when you have all of this income coming in and you don't have, and you have all this time. And so, I poured into it, so I had all these other people, I'm seeing them going out partying and they're like, oh yeah, like free money. And I'm like, oh yeah, like free business startup.
What did you decide to start?
So that's when Christian and I, we started Lazarus Property Group, and we started going down the path. He had been investing in real estate for a while, because he was at Fortune Builders for like 10 years. And so we partnered up. We started doing that. We started doing marketing because.
What is that? Tell us a little bit about it.
So Lazarus Property Group is our real estate investing company.
Mm-hmm.
So where we primarily wholesale houses, we've expanded beyond wholesaling. We do some like minor fix and flips. Right now, our key focus is heavily on novations, not fix and flip novations, but wholesale novations.
Oh,
And then we do some creative finance along the way. So we've expanded beyond just wholesaling over the years. But yeah, we started that. And then we also we were doing text message marketing for real estate investors. So we were generating leads for other real estate investors via text messaging all over the country. And so at one point we had like
as a service?
17 as a service. Yep. Yeah. And we had like 17 to 20 clients at the time. We were sending out, 4 to 5 million text messages a year.
Sorry.
Yeah. 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 It's pretty intense. Yep.
Wow, that's interesting. And how did you meet each other?
At Fortune Builders, so we worked on the same floor, and that's why it's like, God's plan's better than ours. Had I got the job with Fortune Builders that I originally wanted, I'd be in a different building, never would have met him. And God redirected those steps, put me in that position. We met. We're sitting at like one of the lunch tables or whatever, and just ended up talking about our faith, and we connected on our faith pretty significantly. And yeah, and then I asked him to like coach me because I had a lot of sales experience, but I knew nothing about real estate. And my first actual call in the real estate investing space, I was freaking terrified. And I'd been doing sales for 20 plus years at this point, right? So I was no stranger to talking to people and being on a phone call, but I was like, this real estate agent definitely knows way more than me. And that was the moment of clarity for me, that like, that couldn't be further from the truth.
Exactly. So did you guys I think you're both in Sub 2, right?
Yeah.
So did you guys join Sub 2 after, or how did?
Yeah. So we
incorporate.
Yep. Yeah. So we incorporated our business in 2020, and then 2021 we went to the Clever Investor Summit in Vegas, and I was it 2021 or 2022? I forget. The last one that was in Vegas. And basically I was on crutches, and I saw, and we had heard about Pace Morby for a little while leading up to that. But I'll be honest, like it seemed rather culty at the time. Everybody's like sub two, right? Like it just seemed like a little cult. I was like, oh, okay. And then Pace talked at the Clever Investor Summit, and I was like, okay, this guy's legit. The people that were at the event were still a little culty. Like I'll never forget one girl screamed from the crowd. What'd she say? She said, "That's my life up on the stage," or something like.
Yep. I think that was Agnes.
You might be right.
Agnes, because that was the first event that I had followed Pace on. I was virtual, of course, because I just found out about it.
Oh, that's what she said.
Yes.
That's my heart and soul up there.
Yeah, that was Agnes, I'm sure. And she also complained that there weren't enough women up there. And Pace dared her to start a women's group.
Yep.
Which it was interesting. It lasted for a little while, but yeah, it sort of made me think that, okay, I'd already joined. I had just joined, and I felt like, okay, I'm in the right place. But I also did think, from looking in, wow, they're really fanatics.
Yeah, drinking the Kool-Aid a little much.
Yeah, and it was interesting. So you were there with a broken foot? How'd you do that?
No. I had a tear in my meniscus, and I was
Oh,
waiting for surgery. I was supposed to get, I forget whether I was supposed to get surgery before it or like the week after. And then the funny thing was, this was back when they were still doing COVID tests for surgery, and they tested me the day before. And without any symptoms, they're like, "Oh, we're gonna have to push off your surgery because you have COVID." I'm like, "Really?" Like,
yeah,
but yeah, I was like hobbling around on crutches. And then finally I got one of those little carts. So I was like zooming around. Um, so it
that's
was,
great.
yeah, it was fun.
That's great. That's great. So talk to us about your journey since then, because you haven't mentioned that you guys have a podcast that's a hell of a lot more popular than mine.
Yeah, not really a podcast. We're going to be doing a podcast at some point here soon. We keep talking about it. We just got to take action on it. But yeah, we have our YouTube channel, Real Estate Investing Made Easy, which I'm also streaming this live on right now. And so basically, Lazarus Property Group is where we do real estate, and Real Estate Investing Made Easy is where we talk about what we do in real estate. And so we put out different videos on, different stuff that we're doing in our business, strategies, tips, tools, how to with different software,
Is it
funny.
educational, or is it
Yeah.
so do people pay to join?
So the YouTube channel is free. You can just sign up and subscribe and, watch our content there. We do have like our own weekly mastermind that we put on with a handful of investors, and they do pay to be a part of that. We have some other products and services that we've sold over the years.
Tell me more about the mastermind.
Yeah, so the mastermind, it's just a small kind of tight knit community of guys that are, we're generally looking for people that are actively doing deals, right? We feel like the YouTube channel is great for people that are new, so they can learn for free. But those who are doing deals, we have them join the mastermind, or, if they want to join the mastermind, it's with other investors that are actually doing deals, all different types of deals, in real estate. And I actually have, let me see here. This will probably give a better concise breakdown. I mean, basically the three main points is learn and grow, outsource to scale, and close more deals, right? So basically we just come together, we talk about different deals that we're doing. We'll help each other, with closing deals, deal structure. We'll talk about, somebody might bring a deal on and, they're like, this guy really wants to sell. I'm struggling with how we can make this a deal. And we'll talk about, different creative strategies, whether it's a lease option or novation or, sandwich lease option, or, all different types of strategies to try to like cobble the deal together and make it make sense.
Nice, nice. And is it virtual, or is it
It's
all in San
virtual.
Diego? Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
it's virtual. It's on Zoom. Yep.
Well, that's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
you're
And I can
starting
put,
your own little community there.
yep.
That
And I'll put a link in the chat, in the comments. If
Oh, that'd
somebody
be
wants to
great.
learn more about it, you can just go to reime.us,
Mhm.
and, get some more information.
I think that's awesome. Yeah, because how many folks do you have? Like, how big would you say the group is?
Yeah, it fluctuates. I mean, we've had as many as, 15 people in, one time, and it's kind of like, some people show up sometimes. There's some people that have signed up and they've never made it. We record all of them so they can go watch the recordings, and sometimes there's guys that show up all the time. We have a guy that he probably has about 40 or 50 rental properties at this point, and he shows up
Nice.
pretty regularly. We've done some transactions with him. We've helped him out with some novations and stuff. And so, yeah.
I love it. I love it. I like the size, the fact that it's smaller, and I'm sure you guys get to know each other quite well.
Oh yeah.
Please tell me you have at least one woman in there.
Not that shows up regularly, but we've had a few ladies in there.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's pretty cool. Good for you. Good for you. And tell me a little bit more about where you guys are going as a company.
Yeah, so we're
Because you're
we're
doing
actually going.
wholesaling, right?
Yeah, wholesaling, our main active income is wholesaling and novations. And I would say novations probably occupy, a good bit of our revenue at the moment. Um, the thing that we're really good at is lead generation, right? At the
Oh,
end of the day, wholesaling, an acquisitions company is really sales and marketing, right? So if you can market to generate leads and then you can convert those leads, those are really the only two problems that you should like really at a granular level that somebody is dealing with in their business. It's either you don't have enough lead flow or you have struggles converting those leads or both, right? If you can solve those two problems, then a lot of the other problems are just very supplemental, like little, nuance problems, process problems, things of that sort.
mm-hmm.
So what we're really good at is lead generation, getting leads, and converting leads, right? And so
Nice.
we do a great job of locking up contracts, and there's a difference between locking up a contract and locking up a deal, right? So we do a pretty good job of locking up deals. Um, anybody can lock up a
Good.
contract, but if
Yeah,
it's not a deal, it's not
right.
going to go anywhere and
No,
monetize, right?
you're just going to lose your EMD.
Yeah, or you're going to cancel, and like
Yep,
that's worse than never having the deal at all, right?
I agree.
Because the
Yep,
bandwidth that it takes.
I
So,
agree.
but
Where is Chris? Because I know you're in
he's
San
in
Diego.
Arizona.
Okay,
Yeah, he's in Arizona.
okay. That's really, really cool. So
Yeah.
you're going to continue growing with the um, YouTube and with you're going to start a podcast. What's the podcast going to be on? Is it going to be on wholesaling or what?
Um, Not really sure at the moment. We're still kind of figuring that out. I think, if I was going to do my own podcast myself, it would probably be, kind of similar in the vein of yours, but it's like, what's the deal? And it would be like focused on like, deal breakdowns, like, what's the big deal in your business, not necessarily like transaction, but like, what's the big thing that makes your business who you are, that type of thing.
Yep.
Um, so, but yeah, we're still kind of figuring out exactly what we want to do for the podcast.
Wow. Well, you certainly have a nice following on YouTube. And I think it's great that you're starting with have a small mastermind. That's very helpful. Who are you learning from?
Um, you know, the people that I learned from the most, I mean, obviously I learned a good bit at Fortune Builders. I learned a lot, from my business partner, Christian, getting started and then, kind of like, he like really brought my level of knowledge, up to, close to like where his level of knowledge was, and kind of helped accelerate me getting into the space. Pace, obviously I've learned a lot from Pace, Eric Klein and Tony Mont. I've
Hmm.
learned a lot from them. I've been to their mastermind and, just took a lot of, you know, sales skills and coaching from them and, understanding the disposition side. Rich Wonders on the innovation side of things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
Good. Good, good, good. Where do you think you want to see yourself in another 2 or 3 years?
it's a really good question. I started going through, so we were scaling our business in the beginning of the year and, we had a whole team and I'm, still in the office and, some things changed pretty dramatically in the last, 3 or 4 months. And so, we've kind of, cut some guys and, really scaled it back to just me and Christian and, our TC Carolina and a handful of VAs that we use. So kind of scaled back a bit. And, I've been reading this book, which you're probably familiar with, but a lot of audience may or may not be, is Profit First.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, I'm going through the audio book, and there was a point in it where a girl came up to him at an event and was like, "Oh, help me understand. I'm trying to scale. I'm trying to scale. I'm trying to scale." And he's like, "Well, why are you trying to scale?" And she's like, "Well, I want to make more money." And he asked this question that has literally been a pebble in my shoe for the last 4 months. And it was like, well, why don't you just make more money? And I
Mm,
was like, he's like, well, why scale? Like, why not just make more money?
mm,
And, are we scaling just simply for the sake of scaling and for this, like, bragging rights of like, oh, I have this big team and everything? He's
mhm.
like, if you're $1 billion company, but you have $990 million in expenses, then you're bringing in $1 million. If
Right.
you're a $2 million company and you have $1 million in expenses, you're bringing in $1 million,
Exactly.
right? But like the headaches, the hassle, the drama of like managing, 500 people, is not there, and so it's really kind of stuck with me, and I've been grappling with that question for the last few months. Like, do I really want to scale like a big wholesaling operation, or do I just want to focus on doing what I need to do, very lean, get the revenue that I need to? Because quite frankly, wholesaling is a hamster wheel. Novations is a
Mhm,
hamster wheel.
mhm.
It's a treadmill. It's a treadmill that, lots of money can come in, right?
Yep.
Um, but that money is right now money.
Yep.
And what I'm trying to do is, what I really want to do is get more diverse into the point where we're acquiring more rentals and long-term, like, wealth building activities,
Right.
and also looking at, um, lending, right? Like I'm sure
Oh,
you should know Ryan Schroep.
y-
Um,
yes, yes. And you say
yeah.
this at through 3 minutes too?
Yeah. Well, I'm not lending right now, but I'm dipping my toes in the water trying to figure out, like, is that a space that I really want to focus on? And the more I look into it, the more it seems very scalable, um, and more predictable, because you do get recurring business, right?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, Abraham does a ton of lending. I mean, I've used him for
Mhm.
transactional lending, and it works out really well, and it's easy and efficient. And it's like, it takes, sure, you lock up a deal wholesaling or doing an innovation, it takes three. Our average from contract to close is like 74 days. It's like, well, if you're lending, it's like 5-10 minutes, maybe an hour, 2 hours. Yeah, and there's other work that goes into it, right? Like there's
You're
all the
right.
back
You're
end
right.
stuff.
I have to agree. I gotta agree. That's what I'm finding.
So yeah.
So yeah, that is interesting. Well, okay. Sounds to me like you're at a point where you're trying to figure a few things out. Definitely want to talk with you before long, especially about the lending. I
For
think,
sure.
a couple steps taken down that way, and I'm glad I am. I'm still going to continue growing the lending as well as the assets, but for me, I need a balance of both. And although I'm doing wholesaling with Rory, he's doing most of the wholesaling. I'm just bringing the money and
Yeah.
bringing any of the help he needs and that sort of thing. But um, oh, cute. Thank you, Morgan. But I do feel that um, the lending is a very good way to go. It's a very good way to
Yeah.
go. You just have to make sure that you know where your snakes are.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah, for
By the
sure.
way, I wanted to put in the chat this
Thank you.
link because my business partner is actually, so Launch Control, which is like the premier text messaging platform out there. They're hosting him to do a course basically on novations and educating on novations. So if anybody wants to register, it's a free event. You can go just learn exactly like how we're doing novations, what we're doing. And we also JV with people. So
When is it?
good question. I think it's Thursday. Let me double check here. Yes, October 24th, this Thursday, right? That's Thursday. Yeah, Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern time. And the cool thing for any of you watching, if you are doing cash wholesale deals, then and you have deals that fall apart because it's locked up too high, there's no buyers for it, maybe it's not really a fixer. What we specialize in is taking cash deals, converting them to novation agreements and getting them over the finish line. And, you know, without taking too much time, like we did a deal here in San Diego where best case scenario, if the seller even would have signed at our cash offer number, we might have been able to make $5,000. We converted that deal to a novation. We were able to offer him 10% more. So instead of 580, we were able to give him 645, and
Nice.
we actually made 10 times more. We made like $50,000 on that deal. I've got a deal in escrow right now where we're going to make about our total gross margin on it before commissions and closing costs is $284,000. We've got another one that we just went under contract with a buyer for. That's $192,000. That one's a cool creative deal because we did a contract for deed on that to lock it up. So we own the property and then listed it. But yeah, we can help.
Okay, guys. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. That sounds fascinating, to say the least. Absolutely. And if you don't mind, I think I'm going to come.
Yeah.
I can always learn a few things for sure.
Totally.
And I wish you the best with it. And if you're game, I'd love to have you back at some point. Tell me what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm down to come on anytime.
Okay. And if you're in Chicagoland, I'd love to have you here, but I'm never coming to your office with that snake there.
It's all right. She's in a nice cage that's all locked up and secured.
Yeah, but you got to open it to feed her, don't you?
That's true. She only eats live mice.
Okay.
She won't even eat the frozen ones. That's pretty cool though. She like whoosh, whoosh, wraps them up and
wow,
the mice squeal.
Yeah, I'll bet they do. I bet they do. All right. Well, I want to say thank you, everybody. Thank you for coming. And I do encourage you, do make sure that if you can, take the time to go. It's October, this Thursday at 1 p.m. The link is in the chat.
Yeah, and if you guys need help with any of your novation deals or any help at all, I'm going to put my email and my underwriter's email in the chat here.
Very cool.
You can just send over any deals that you need help with, and we can help you, you know, whether you need help closing it and restructuring it or dispoing it. We do nationwide dispo for wholesale as well as novations. Did you put it in the chat? It is right there. Okay, cool. Because if it's in the chat, then it will stay before I take us off Perfect. Air. So here we go, guys. See you next week. And Chris, thank you so much. Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me. Are you kidding? It's my pleasure. See you guys next week.